My sister announced she was pregnant with my husband's child at my 35th birthday dinner. I remember the way my fork slipped from my hand, the sound of it clattering against my plate echoing in that quiet, private dining room. My mother gasped. My father's face turned grey. Mark stared at the floor. And Lauren? She held her head high, like she had just won some kind of prize. But before that moment, before the betrayal unfolded under the soft glow of those birthday candles, there was us. Mark and I met in grad school in Austin. He was the first person who made me feel seen, really seen. We spent long nights working on research papers, whispering about our future like kids dreaming under the stars. I supported him when he struggled to launch his career. I believed in him when he didn't even believe in himself. We built a life together, a modest home with creaky wooden floors, 2 rescue dogs, small traditions that felt big to us. Then there was Lauren, my younger sister, the favourite. She was always the one turning heads at every family event, soaking up attention like a sponge. Our parents adored her charm, her effortless ability to bend people her way. I thought I was past that old sibling rivalry. I thought I'd grown beyond needing their approval. But, slowly, things changed. Mark started working late. His texts got shorter, colder. He stopped asking me about my day. He avoided my eyes at dinner. I tried to tell myself it was stress, a big project, maybe burnout. I offered support, home-cooked meals, quiet patience. I waited up for him with the porch light on, thinking that's what good wives do. Lauren started showing up more, dropping by just to say hi, always wearing that same lipstick stain I later found on Mark's shirt. She called me too serious, said Mark needed more fun. I laughed it off at first, but I saw the way they looked at each other when they thought I wasn't watching. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just watched. And in that silence, I began to plan, because they both underestimated me, and that was their biggest mistake. Lauren didn't waste time making her moves more obvious. It started subtly. A forgotten hair tie in Mark's car, lipstick stains on his travel mugs, perfume on his jackets that definitely wasn't mine. Then she got bold. She'd show up at our house unannounced when I was working late. Once I came home early and saw her car parked in our driveway. I walked in, heard music from the living room, and found them sitting together on the couch, a little too close, laughing at some inside joke I'd never know. Lauren looked up and gave me that practiced, innocent smile. "Oh, hey, Mark was just helping me figure out my taxes." I stood in the doorway, still in my work blazer, purse hanging from my shoulder, and watched as she flipped her hair, touched his arm casually like it was nothing. Mark barely looked at me. He just stood up, kissed my cheek lightly, and asked if I wanted dinner. I felt invisible. After that day, Mark started locking his phone. He never used to. He kept it face down on the kitchen counter, silenced. He claimed he had too many work notifications. "Just trying to keep us from being disturbed, babe." I wanted to believe him, so I nodded, even smiled. But inside, something hollow echoed. There were nights he didn't come home until 2 a.m. He blamed team happy hours, late client meetings, deadlines. I stayed up waiting on the couch, forcing myself to stay awake so I wouldn't miss the sound of his key turning in the lock. Every time he walked in, he smelled like alcohol and something sweet. Lauren's perfume. At first, I'd ask, gently. He'd brush me off, accuse me of being paranoid, say I needed to trust more if I wanted this marriage to work. And each time I retreated, telling myself to be supportive, to stay quiet. One night, he came home with a shopping bag from a high-end boutique. When I asked if it was for me, he laughed. A short, sharp laugh. "You don't even like this kind of stuff," he said, tossing the bag aside. Later, I saw Lauren wearing that same dress on her Instagram story. A tight red dress clinging to her like it was made for her alone. The final crack came on a Thursday morning. I had just finished making coffee, setting out his travel mug like I always did. Mark walked into the kitchen, barely glanced at me. He picked up his keys, dropped a $20 0-cent bill on the counter and said, "Get yourself something nice today." I stood there, gripping the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. I was 35, had 2 degrees, a solid career, and he tossed me cash like I was some random errand girl. That morning, after he left, I stood alone in the kitchen for a long time. My coffee went cold. I looked around at the framed photos on the walls. Engagement photos, vacation snapshots, memories that felt like they belonged to someone else. I went to the bathroom, splashed water on my face and stared at myself in the mirror. I barely recognized the woman looking back. Her eyes were sunken, her lips pressed into a thin, exhausted line. I whispered to her, "No more." That was the moment I woke up. I took the day off work. Instead, I sat at my desk with Mark's old laptop, the one he used before he got his new work-issued one. He thought I didn't know he still used it for personal emails. I opened it, guessed the password easily. Our wedding anniversary. A joke, really. And there they were, dozens of emails from Lauren. Some were short and playful, dinner plans, inside jokes. Others explicit. I read each one carefully, documenting them, taking screenshots, saving them all to a private folder on my own drive. After that, I called a private investigator. I remember shaking slightly when I gave the details over the phone. The investigator's voice was calm, professional. "We'll get you what you need," he said. Weeks passed, and each day I pretended. I still made dinner, still left the porch light on, still asked about his day. But inside, I was collecting evidence. I gathered bank statements, noticed cash withdrawals I hadn't seen before, strange charges at restaurants I'd never visited. I kept copies in a locked folder at work, labelled with a fake project name. I started wearing my hair down, softer makeup, more smiles at home, an act, a careful disguise. Mark thought he had broken me, that I had accepted my place quietly. Lauren still visited sometimes, acting like she owned the house. I offered her tea, complimented her dress, pretended I didn't know a thing. She looked at me with pity, as if I were some sad leftover in her story. In reality, I was moving the chess pieces exactly where I wanted them. One night, I told Mark I was planning a big birthday dinner for myself. Wanted to invite the family, some close friends, make it special. He barely listened, nodding, scrolling on his phone. "Sure, whatever makes you happy," he muttered. That was it. That dinner would be my stage. In the days leading up to it, I met with my lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Claire. We drafted divorce papers, gathered everything I needed. I signed quietly, felt the pen heavy in my hand, but also freeing. The investigator delivered a thick folder of photos. Mark and Lauren together at hotels, in her apartment, even in our own living room when I was away. Receipts, call logs, a timeline so thorough it left no room for denial. I've prepared a small folder of key documents to bring with me to dinner. One final piece of the puzzle, Mark's vasectomy record. I found it tucked away in the bottom drawer of his office under old tax returns. He never wanted children, we decided that together. Lauren, apparently, missed that memo. On the day of my birthday, I woke up early. I took a long shower, did my hair carefully, wore a deep blue dress Mark once said made my eyes stand out. As I zipped it up, I looked in the mirror and took a deep breath. That morning, Mark kissed my forehead distractedly before heading out to run errands. Lauren posted a selfie later that day in a car. His car. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply smiled at my reflection. I knew what was coming. I knew they would walk in together. I knew she would announce her big surprise in front of everyone. And I knew exactly how I would dismantle them both, piece by piece, calmly, publicly, completely. Mark thought he broke me. Lauren thought she won. What they didn't know was I was just getting started. I walked into that restaurant on my birthday, knowing exactly how the night would end. The private dining room was softly lit, decorated with white roses and tiny candles. My parents were already there, chatting politely, holding small gift bags. Friends were mingling near the wine table, laughing. And then there was Mark, standing by the door, pretending everything was fine, checking his watch like he had somewhere more important to be. I greeted everyone calmly, hugged my mum, thanked my dad for coming. I even thanked Mark for setting this up, though he had done nothing but show up. Lauren entered 10 minutes late, just as I knew she would. She wore that same red dress from the boutique bag, her hair curled perfectly, her lips curved into a satisfied smirk when she saw me. She walked right up to Mark, touched his arm lightly, then glanced around the room, making sure she had an audience. I sat down, folded my napkin on my lap, and waited. Halfway through dinner, as the waiter set down my favourite chocolate cake and my dad prepared to make a toast, Lauren cleared her throat. She stood, slowly, dramatically smoothing her dress over her stomach. "I have an announcement," she said, her voice trembling just enough to appear fragile, vulnerable. "I'm pregnant, and it's Mark's." Gasps. Forks dropped. My mum's eyes darted between me and Lauren, her hands flying to her mouth. My father turned pale. Mark shrank into his chair, eyes locked on the floor. I didn't move. I didn't cry. I let the silence fill every corner of that room. Then I stood up, calmly picking up my wineglass. "That's wonderful news," I said, my voice steady, controlled. "But before we celebrate, I have a few things to share too." I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope, thick, neatly labelled. I handed it to my father first. "Inside you'll find copies of emails between Mark and Lauren," I explained. Details of their meetings, explicit exchanges, hotel receipts. I also included photos from a private investigator. They're quite thorough. My father's hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. My mother looked away, already shaking her head in denial. Lauren's face drained of all colour. Mark's breathing turned shallow. "But there's more," I continued. I pulled out another document, the medical record. "Mark had a vasectomy 2 years ago. We decided together not to have children. So Lauren, I'm afraid that baby isn't Mark's. You might want to double-check." A stunned hush fell over the room. Lauren's jaw dropped open, but no sound came out. She clutched her stomach, stumbling backwards slightly, as if she might faint. Mark finally looked up, his eyes wide, panic rising fast. "Rachel, please." I shook my head slowly. "Don't bother." I turned toward my parents. "I'm filing for divorce, papers are ready. I've already frozen the joint accounts and secured all shared assets under my name, as per our prenup. I'll be moving out tomorrow. Mark can keep his lies." Mark's eyes darted from me to the door, as if searching for an escape. His mouth opened and closed, but nothing useful came out. Lauren tried to speak, but all that came out was a choked sob. She looked around the room, desperate for someone, anyone, to comfort her. But no one moved. In that moment, everything they had built on secrets and betrayal crumbled right there under the soft candlelight. I didn't have to yell, didn't have to throw things or curse. The truth alone was enough to bring them both to their knees. Mark finally stood up, his voice cracking. "Please, Rachel, we can fix this. You can't just walk away." I tilted my head slightly, studying him like he was a bug under glass. "Watch me." Lauren dropped into her chair, burying her face in her hands. Her sobs echoed against the walls, sharp and ugly. My mother tried to reach for her, but hesitated, her hand hanging in the air. My father looked at me, his eyes full of a kind of respect I had never seen before. I turned back to the guests. Thank you all for coming. I know this wasn't the evening you expected, but I think it's exactly the one I needed." I placed my glass down, lifted my purse and stepped away from the table. As I walked toward the door, I felt every eye in that room follow me. Not with pity, not with shame, but with awe. At the door, I paused, turned back one last time. "To Mark and Lauren," I said quietly, "may you both finally learn the difference between taking something and actually deserving it." Then I left. Outside, the air felt sharper, cleaner. I took a deep breath, savouring the cool night against my skin. I walked to my car, my steps light, my spine straight. That night, I checked into a small boutique hotel downtown. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on the little balcony overlooking the city lights, and let out the first deep breath I had taken in months. I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I felt reborn. The next morning, I met with Claire to finalise the filings. Mark's pleading texts started coming in fast. Long, rambling paragraphs about forgiveness and starting over. I didn't reply. Lauren tried to call too, left voicemails full of half-baked apologies, blaming stress, blaming confusion. I didn't listen. In the days that followed, I moved into my new apartment. Modern, bright, filled with sunlight and quiet mornings. I painted the walls the deep green I always loved, but Mark thought was too dark. I hung up art pieces I had kept in storage for years because they cluttered the house. I adopted another rescue dog, named her Hope. I started waking up early to go running by the river. I cooked meals for myself, played music in the kitchen, danced when no one was watching. I reclaimed every corner of my life that I had once given away too easily. Work flourished too. Freed from the constant mental noise, I landed 2 major projects, earned a promotion, and even started mentoring young women in my field, women who, like me, had once thought silence was strength. When I saw myself in the mirror now, I recognized her. A woman who survived betrayal not with rage, but with clarity and precision. A woman who chose herself and meant it. I didn't forgive them. I didn't forget. And I didn't need to. I simply moved on, stronger and lighter. He thought he broke me. He was wrong. After everything, I stepped into my new apartment for the first time, carrying only 2 suitcases, a box of books, and a set of mismatched mugs I had collected over the years. The place smelled like fresh paint and possibility. It wasn't big. A 2-bedroom corner unit downtown with high windows that let in the soft Texas sunrise every morning. There was no one to ask me to turn the music down. No one complaining about the clutter. No one demanding I cook dinner a certain way. I chose a deep forest green for the living room walls, the same colour Mark once called depressing. I picked it because it felt alive, rich, full of depth. I hung up paintings that had been hiding in the garage for years. I planted little herbs by the window, watched them reach toward the sun day after day. For the first time in a decade, I felt like every inch of this space truly belonged to me. I started waking up early again, just like I did in grad school, before life twisted me into a shape that fit everyone else's expectations. I would make coffee, lace up my running shoes, and head down to the river trail. Those morning runs became my therapy, each footstep a soft drumbeat reminding me that I was moving forward, alone but strong. At work, I dove headfirst into my projects, no longer distracted by half-truths and hidden phone calls. My focus sharpened, my confidence returned. A few months later, I got promoted to lead a major campaign, the kind of role I had always wanted but never felt allowed to chase fully. My evenings were no longer filled with empty small talk or forced dinners. Instead, I curled up with a glass of red wine and a book, or called an old friend just to laugh about nothing important. Sometimes, I sat quietly on the balcony, feeling the night air on my face, listening to the city breathe beneath me. Lauren and Mark faded into the background like outdated wallpaper. Lauren moved out of town after the scandal erupted in our circles. Word got out. She was carrying a baby that wasn't Mark's, and her web of half-lies collapsed quickly. I heard she tried to reach out a few times. I never picked up. Mark tried too, sending long, messy emails at first, then short, angry bursts when I didn't reply. He accused me of being heartless, cold, ungrateful. I didn't respond once. Ignoring him felt better than any argument could have. Months turned into a year. My hair grew longer, my skin looked healthier, my laugh returned. People at work started saying, "There's something different about you lately, in a good way." I would just smile, knowing they could never imagine what it took to get here. I started hosting small dinner parties in my new place. Nothing extravagant, just close friends, home-cooked meals, candles burning low. We shared stories, cried over old wounds, cheered each other on. I watched them pass around plates and pour wine and realized I was finally surrounded by people who saw me, not some watered-down version of me. I learnt to forgive myself before anyone else. I forgave myself for not seeing the signs sooner, for wanting to hold a marriage together that had already turned into ash, for trying to protect someone who never protected me back. I didn't forgive them, not because I couldn't, but because I didn't need to. Forgiveness was no longer a gift I felt pressured to give away just to keep the peace. Through it all, I discovered a lesson I wish someone had taught me sooner. Kindness is not the same as weakness. You can love someone deeply and still choose to walk away. You can be gentle and still draw the sharpest line in the sand when someone crosses you. Some nights, as I fall asleep with the city lights flickering outside my window, I think about the woman I used to be, the one who waited up on the couch, the one who apologized for asking too many questions, the one who twisted herself into knots, trying to be enough. I grieve her, I honor her, but I do not want to be her again. To anyone watching this who has ever felt like they were small, disposable, or voiceless, I want you to know you are none of those things. You are not too much, and you are not too little. You are exactly enough as you are. And if someone makes you feel otherwise, you have every right to choose yourself, fiercely, unapologetically. I moved into this chapter of my life without Mark, without Lauren, without their noise in my head. And with each passing day, I built something more honest, more joyful, and more mine. I thought I would miss them, but I don't. I miss who I thought they were, and that's a different kind of grief. One I learned to carry and then set down. Now, I sleep through the night without checking the time, without listening for keys in the lock. I wake up to my own rhythm, eat when I'm hungry, dance in my living room when a good song comes on. I have not just survived, I have bloomed. And today, as I sip my coffee on my balcony, watching the sky turn from deep blue to soft pink, I realize something simple and powerful. I didn't win because they lost. It isn't because I chose me,